hope you had refreshing moments and are back with a fresh mind and renewed energy to continue the technical session of the conference. Not
So it is my great pleasure to introduce the keynote speaker of this particular session for this National Conference on Advances in Computational Intelligence. So today we have Professor Ram Divakar. He is a distinguished professor and director of Amrita Mind Brain Center, Amritapuri, and a faculty fellow at the Amrita Center for International Program, Amrita Vishwa Vidyapitham. He holds a PhD in Computational Sciences from the University of Milan, Italy, and completed postdoctoral research at the University of Pavia through prestigious EU-funded projects. His interdisciplinary research integrates computational neuroscience, brain-inspired computing, neuromorphic system, biorobotics, and GPU-based modeling, with significant contributions to cerebellar modeling and neuro-AI systems. He has served as a principal and co-investigator for multiple DST-funded projects and is a recipient for NVIDIA Innovation Award for his pioneering work in GPU-based neuroscience. Professor Dr. Shyam Divakar is a senior member of IEEE, a member of the Organization for Computational Neurosciences, and a life member of Indian Academy of Neuroscience, and regularly contributes as an invited speaker, editor, and reviewer in leading international conferences and journals. So at this outset, I welcome you, sir, for this first keynote session for this wonderful national conference. Session is for you, sir.
Thank you, Professor Muthumanikam, for the kind introduction. Can I have the slides on? Very good morning once again. I'm very happy to be in front of all of you. At least a large number of you are young students. And I believe some part of it is something that I learned and some part of it I'll try to promote. Today's topic is about bio-inspired computation. The word bio is a little bit delicate. I'm going to borrow the idea brain-inspired computing, which means that I'm going to borrow the idea that the computational architecture that we look at is inspired from real circuits in the central nervous system. I come from this university that some of you know, Amrita Vishwa Vidyapitham. Amrita is based in 11 campuses at the moment, and you know the Coimbatore campus is closest to Salem. I am from this C campus that is close to Amritapur. These two hospitals giving us so many questions that AI has to solve. We thought, at least that was my belief, in 2022 I thought in 2024 AI would replace all radiologists. So all of us, all of you will be getting jobs to understand how artificial intelligence can answer questions today. But before that, let me tell my connections to VMRF. We were part of a very old project that started in 2009, April, called the Virtual Labs project. These are that time the developers in a few years later. We were together. It was IIT Delhi who was leading the project. Amrita and some other institutions, mostly there was Amrita, NIT, College of Engineering Pune, and Dayalbagh as the non-IIT members. And we wanted to launch how India would develop new models for education online. We never knew about COVID. We only thought, why not something online? And what we ended up was with this very unique national missions on education through ICT, where we constructed labs. And I'm fortunate to say that VMKV, Kripananda Warrior College of Arts and Sciences, was one of the first nodal centers under the Virtual Labs project. So that's where my connection started, Dr. Anbergen, and I'm happy that this is where it goes. Coming back to our lecture, I know most of you know it. I'm not worried about this question. We asked the question, what is AI today? As you know, AI is the core of all computing today. India itself is moving from a software engineering world, to an AI-driven world. AI is everywhere, including coding. And you'll see that large companies like Amazon, for example, is going to fire, or just fired on 27th January, 16,000 employees because they are changing their system of design. So one of the core focuses of AI today is a few topics among this, where I think neural networks NLP are taking much higher. I'm not going to lecture you about it. If you need a very interesting book to read, please go to Stanford and download the Nielsen's machine learning book, and you'll get a lot of basic intro on what machine learning does. What's a bigger challenge is this higher challenge, that what do you do when you graduate, or when I am looking at a project 3 or 5 years from now. This is the picture in 2030. It comes from the epoch.ai website. By 2030, we believe 3 worlds will change. Everything will change, but 3 worlds will primarily change. One is, I'm sorry, that's not my computer. It's something else. Okay. It's the mathematics will change, so you don't have to study mathematics the way you and I are studying today, although I would say you need a little bit of math to understand everything. There would not be the same kind of software engineering. There's a huge steep that India is investing on to change the way we look at software engineering today. And biology. I think biology is one of the biggest branches that's going to be the next physics of all people. That is, whether you're in mechanical engineering or design or civil engineering, you're going to use some amount of inspiration from biological systems. And that's where biologists also will ask, as an application scientist, can you help me build a proper question? What we do at Amrita is this picture. We do look at 2 things. We look at methods and applications. Methods means conventional machine learning, data mining, AI, AI meaning deep networks. Okay. Thank you. When we developed the hospital in 1997-98, one of the challenges that we had is developing platforms for personal medical records. And that's when we realized how much critical security on the internet is. And now with AI, it becomes even more challenging. So these are some of the topics that if you Google today or if you search today, you'll get up as standard AI approach. What I also find challenging is the way we look at neuro-inspired AI today. My question, I'm not a pure engineer. I am engineer background, but my PhD and postdoc was neuroscience. So my question is, how does the brain do the same thing that hardcore computer science struggles to do it? We ask, if you look at the brain as a computing device, as most of us know, we ask these 2 questions. One, how the brain implements the same action that you do. For example, how many of you have seen anything about Harry Potter? I'm sorry, this is for the younger people. Harry Potter? Show of hands, please. At least 3 hands or 4. What's the difference in Harry Potter? What do you see as a difference between the hero and the villain in the books? Any questions? Any answers? You know the story of Harry Potter, right? Some of you, at least some of you know it. If you have read the books, it's really impressive. I don't know about the movies, but if you see the books and you read, you'll see a major difference between Harry Potter and the villain. What is it? Perception wise, it's what AI does. Any clue? Anybody shouting? No, it's okay. So my suggestion is, if you look at a data construct, remember Harry Potter is a story written by a very talented author. So if you are writing your code as a talented coder, your code should represent and I can read your code and I can understand what you're doing. If I'm doing that, I understand what characteristics of the code means. And if I read Harry Potter as a code, I understand Harry Potter does magic in the story. His antagonist, Voldemort, also does magic. Both of them have friends. Harry Potter is portrayed as a hero, Voldemort is portrayed as a villain. So what did they both do? They killed people, they probably prevented some people from doing something else. But what is uniquely different? I believe at the end of the story, one of my students said the nose. So Harry Potter has a nose, Voldemort doesn't have a nose. So the perceptual difference is what our brains are good at. Sorry, I'm hitting some key that probably should not be the case. So this question, how the brain operates a variety of tasks. So for example, if my brain is creating me a 3rd hand, will my prosthetic hand function as well as my physical hand? It's something that is related to both a cognitive and motor task. So I think a brain is a very powerful AI supercomputer that does a lot of AI tasks. And if I break that down, I think of AI as computer as a computational system that actually implements a lot of algorithms inside it. So this is the primary work that we do in terms of laboratory development that we do at Amrita. So what is the challenge here? Computers are very simple. They're all similar. Same hardware, similar software. They just do different things differently. Each algorithm does different stuff. But the brain is kind of a hardware and a software together with all these differences, which means that the brain is different at the computational level. Each neuron, each cell of a brain is different. It works as an independent computer by itself. Connection between two cells is a nonlinear element. So basically that works independently. You have circuits comprised of few neurons, or networks, even larger neurons, and functional zones, even larger, couple of million neurons, and then behavior, several hundreds of millions of neurons. By the way, the average amount of brain neurons is larger than the perceivable number of stars that you see in the sky, the perceivable sky. And the best question that you can ask is, will my computer algorithm or will my data-driven algorithm ever become conscious? Meaning, will it have a singularity, a singular process? So this is a challenge that we think of when we pose these questions. And neurobiologists or biophysicists will tell you these are all complexity of the system. And this is something that we do. We want to understand, instead of taking one bottle of water equivalent of energy every time I ask a question, I want my brain uses 20 watts of energy on a whole day. So if you think a lot, for example, you feel tired, you feel hungry, all that is because the brain also takes energy, but it's not the same scale as if I'm doing, for example, Dr. Sashikumar was talking about India doing its own platform. So when Sridhar Vembu came, I asked him the question, can India replace Microsoft? The challenge is we need power stations that are amazing. Like you need to have nuclear power reactors right next to your data center to power it, or you'll have to put your data center under the ocean, like American, US, Microsoft had done under the Pacific Ocean, and to maintain this low energy value. So I think of the brain, or the central idea of the brain, has a circuit that does a lot of tasks. Among the tasks, if you look at it from neural networks perspective, my brain circuit is an objective function. So I can model whatever I want, whether it's a movement of a hand, whether it is data separation, whether it's asking a question, who's that boy sleeping or who's that girl sleeping? That could be identifying whether it's a boy or a girl. It's how brains work. We use animal models. We use data coming from rats. Rat brains are very powerful. They are very much similar to human beings. They are very much similar to human beings. They have a very good, rats have a social life that's equally similar like humans do. From those models, we build artificial models that are realistically close to brain structures. We also tweak them to make them artificial. I can convert that into AI. Today we'll talk about it. We do a bit of imaging. That's one of our imaging devices, not a high density imaging device, but a low density imaging device, where we measure the EEG of people, and we look at what the cortical functions or cortical potentials tell us about EEG. We did that for yoga, we do that for music, we do that for movement tasks, we do that for cybersecurity, we do that for UI perception. From there, we also build disease models, or understandably things that doctors can use in hospitals to predict something. So these are some of the studies that we do, and this is the big picture. So when it comes to mathematical models, I won't go into the depth of it. I realize that a large number of you are students. If you have studied differential equations, if you have studied linear algebra, if you have studied nonlinear dynamics, you already know more than me. So we use simple first order or second order differential equations in biologically reconstructing activity. Whenever we think of a biological neuron, electrically excitable cell, imagine it like a resistor and a capacitor, storing charges and releasing charges. So these models can be modeled as membranes that generate activity, and you can construct firing behaviors of neurons that are realistically close. From those dynamics, you can connect, once you validate them, once you take experimental data, once you connect them and you create models out of it, you get network potentials. From those network potentials, you can build much larger models. Remember that some of them require supercomputers and so on. My inspiration, comes from this network called the cerebellum. Cerebellum is like the tiny brain that is below here. Cervelletto, bellum meaning small, cervello means brain. So small brain in Latin became cerebellum. It's a very modular architecture. It's 10 times the larger number of neurons than the rest of the brain. It's closely packed. It's modularly organized. It does 3 kinds of learning at least. 4 types of learning at least. It does associative rule mapping, it does unsupervised learning, it does supervised learning, and it does reinforcement learning. So with that, you can derive amazing ideas on how the small structure can be like a superpower control. So for example, let's say if I ask you, suddenly the light goes and you're eating, you're able to eat because your cerebellum is able to predict where your mouth is even without knowing where the mouth is. Another example, let's say if you tickle yourself, you don't feel tickled. If somebody tickles you, you are feeling tickled. You know the reason behind it? Your brain is predicting that when it's your own hand tickling you, your brain is predicting, forget it, doesn't matter, it's your own input. Some people will still have a higher sensitivity to feeling tickled, but that's a different story. I'm just giving you an example of how the feed-forward control in brain circuits happen. So given this structure, we'll talk about a few neurons like this. Most of us work in this granular layer of the cerebellum. We have a multi-layer perceptron layer called the Purkinje cells. Purkinje cells goes into what is called a molecular layer, where there are some interneurons. They are like feedback control. Then you have the output layer, which is called the deep cerebellar nuclei. You don't have to worry about it. Just giving you a structure that even brain, just like leaves, has a unique structure. So what do I do that for? We know that from textbooks, circuits like this are critical for understanding movement control, motor coordination. If you get this knowing circuit, the power is 2,000 years ago. So you take, if I build a 200, let's say 600 pieces of something like this, it's not here, it's just within 2 weeks. If I build it like can I do that's when movement control. That's perfect. How do I build it? In our standard use a black box AI. What we did is something like this. We take data from rats. We keep animal through the brain. We collect inside the cell, we want to get data. We build models of neurons. These models of neurons are validated, experimentally validated. It's not around 50 years, and for PhD students to what more of PhD. And part of the work comes from my background from my PhD days. So back in 2005, 2004. And then today you can connect these networks and read analytic models of brain circuits, but circuit the algorithms are model brain, actually like the brain does. And today I also simplify them. So if you want to understand how to simplify mathematical models, again, I'm sorry. I can build simple models like this, models like Hodgkin-Huxley. These are 2 equations, so your laptop or your desktop can compute neuron models well. These are the people who invented them on the side. In today, what we use is called an adaptive exponential integrated fire neuron model. In the part of the thing is 2 to the power 12 equations. So it's a large number of equations that are being solved, and all of this is open source, so you can download them and execute them. We can build, these are biologically validated mathematical models. Once you have these tough models, you can create properties that you see from the models. This is where biologists will say, this is what I want. So biologists will say, whatever he or she sees in an experiment, she or he will want it. And this is what they see. They put an electrode and they see these beautiful looking spikes or action potentials. So they want you to measure the action potential, the amplitude, how soon they happen, what it does. If your model is able to produce that, they are very happy. So this is one way of saying your models are very good. Once you know it for one model, you can use values that you can use your general optimization theory, you can fit it to all the neurons in the market that you want. Once you have that, you have what is called a spiking neural network. With this spiking neural network, you can do a lot of interesting stuff. You can either study a disease like epilepsy or Alzheimer's or a condition, or you can pull out things like this. You can compute large networks either on a CPU or on a GPU, and you can study what happens across these networks as a disease progresses. So this is what a clinician or a hospital doctor would expect you to do. Otherwise, what we call as digital brain twin. We are part of this large network called Multi-Scale Brain Function, India-Italy Network of Excellence. Amrita is the Indian coordinator, Milan is the Italian coordinator, IIT Madras, IIT Hyderabad are the other two partners, and along with Milan, Pavia and Modena in Italy, where we try to understand whether we can put together a network as complex as this to reconstruct a fake brain function. Of course, we are far away from it. We are doing parts of basal ganglia, parts of thalamus, we have parts of cortex, we have maybe a working cerebellum. So this is where we are. And this can help us do a lot of things, like understanding what a computer vision project would do instead of using artificial vision. This is a simulation, an example that I wanted to, this is 20 hours of simulation on a supercomputer. Each dot that you see is a modeled, biologically model of neuron, and you can generate very beautiful pictures out of it. So you run the simulation for a long time and you get what happens in a square, small piece of brain tissue. Why is this critical? People will ask you, if you're modeling the brain, why are you going so critical into all the structures? It's because we do not know brain function. You might say, I know what the brain does, but if you look at it today, take any neurological disorder, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, epilepsy, we do not have a solution yet because we do not know the entirety of its function or dysfunction. And most of the brain function that we see are from reconstructions like small pieces of tissues or small pieces of functions that we want to understand. All this is what modeling can power you. So being computer science applications or computer science students, you can do a lot of nice computer science based models of real brain tissue. I'll diverse back to AI in medicine. Why am I here? I asked the question, what's your role in the field today? If you ask at it, the next big thing that people expect investments on is AI in medicine. Whether it's a path or a shortcut, I do not know. That's something that you should tell me in a few years. It has a lot of challenges. It has a data challenge. I have what is called data deluge. For example, epilepsy doctor, clinician in Amrita, she handles up to 72 patients a day, going from minimum of 26 patients a day. They don't have time to analyze data. They don't have time to make models. They only have time to study their patients and give them medical dosages. They do not have the time to be a human in the loop for your AI models. There is a significant issue whether the human in the loop will even understand the model. There's a privacy issue. Privacy is a very critical topic, and I'm sure Dr. Swati is going to talk about cybersecurity there. And adaptability is a very important question that we see that in medicine, whenever AI is done for medicine, it's a big challenge. We do not know what is adaptability. So today I present it as a question mark saying that whatever we do is a big picture of this happening. So we see a lot of people doing experiments, reconstructing how the body or the clinical part works. For example, an artificial diabetes model looking at pancreas knows how pancreas works. Experimental data might come from rats or human diabetic patients. They embed it into a artificial neural network or a spiking neural network. Artificial neural networks and spiking neural networks are both artificial in some sense because they are not biological. But spiking neural networks can be constrained to fit biological data. And then you map it into applications. What I feel is very unique is, for example, the question of social media. We think data-driven, man-in-the-loop AI is going to change the way we India look at. So, for example, in a few days, we have the India AI Summit. And today, for example, today is the AI in Ethics event in NASCOM. I was supposed to be there in the afternoon. But what you really understand is that these India AIs tells you that India is cutting edge in AI. So, if you've thought about going into a software job, go for an agentic software job. Everything that you build, services that you build, applications that you build are going to be agentic or man-in-the-loop AI as a game changer. So I believe in a near future, I want to have a brain-only system. I do not assume that it exists that way, but that's what modern science tells you. Embodification is very critical, so I'm believing that embodification is also going to be added. Embodification means if I want a hand to be working, I need a prosthetic hand or a real duplicate of it. Set of lectures, I was looking at clinical activity. If you go and ask any of your, 25 years ago, I would say my field, my field had like 3,000 papers a year. That's it.